Hey y'all, this is Kobe R. Rice, and I'm back again for another weekly creative update. But as usual, it's late. For good reasons this time, though. For about the past week and a half, I actually couldn't even really talk that well because I had contracted something that literally took my voice away. I felt really upbeat and like relatively healthy, quote unquote. I just couldn't really talk. So that was a barrier, obviously, that I am finally overcoming today. And first of all, Happy New Year. Yay! I already said that to you guys in my last podcast when I was talking about my creative goals for 2019. But being that I have been away since then, since around, I think it was January 2nd, I posted that, I felt the need to come back and reiterate that this is a new year and it should be a happy beginning. So whether or not you had a really crappy 2018, hopefully this new year is going to bring you bigger and better things. But the past couple of weeks have actually been kind of strange for me. And this is not so much a shock because I think I mentioned a couple podcasts ago that for the past few years, every single January has been pretty bumpy in terms of just getting off on the right foot and all these weird things happening and these sort of weird coincidences and weird inconveniences, etc., etc. But this past 2 weeks has just been super weird. Not super inconvenient, but just super weird. And we'll get into all of that because while at the same time it was weird, it was also simultaneously very productive. So as I go through my milestones, I will let you guys know what was going on for both ends of the spectrum. But before I even get into that, welcome back. This is episode number 92 of the epic fantastical journey of a Black female sci-fi writer. I am Kobe R. Rice, novelist, screenwriter, TV writer, filmmaker, dramaturg apparently, game designer, narrative designer, etc., etc., etc. And one of the first major announcements is that I have recently just closed off recruitment for my ARC team. And for those of you who don't know what an ARC team is, it's an advanced review copy, basically. So these are the people who are signed up to the group that will get advanced review copies of my upcoming novel, The Lock-In, the third installment of the Books of Ezekiel series. I'm really excited. It's coming out January 31st, and I will be giving out the ARC copies to my readers this coming Monday. So I'm super amped about that. And for those of you who unfortunately didn't get onto the ARC team or just missed it entirely, The Lock-In is on pre-order at Amazon.com, Kobo.com, iBooks, Nook, aka BarnesandNoble.com, and a whole bunch of other online retailers. So you can just click the link below. It's a universal link. It'll take you to one page with all of the links to any of the retailers that you prefer. And you can choose to navigate from that page to whichever e-reader you use, pre-order it for that particular e-reader or from that particular retailer you want to use, and boom, you have a basically a one-stop shop copy sent directly to your e-reader or your phone or your Kindle or whatever when it comes out on January 31st. As of right now, the Lock-In is retailing at $2.99, so it's literally the cost of a coffee. If you don't live in a place that has coffees under $3, then you might even feel like it's a better deal than a coffee. But yeah, it's $2.99 USD, and actually it's even cheaper in certain places. So that's one major announcement. Definitely check out the pre-order link below. And if you haven't read or started the series at all, I will also put down the link to the first novel in the series, which is called The Given. That is perpetually and forever free. So for anybody who basically wants to get a taste of what my overall writing style is, and basically want to dive into the Books of Ezekiel series with very little risk, you can definitely go and download that book for free. In exchange, you will be signed up to my mailing list, and you can choose to stay on it or choose not to stay on it. But the Given, it's called, is 100% free. And if you choose to continue on, you then have the Taken to purchase for $2.99 and then the Lock-in for $2.99. And eventually, I'm hoping by May, I'll have the next book in the series, Fraternity, available for you guys to download, to buy and download as well. So, yay for that. That's really exciting. Despite all of the craziness that's been happening for the past couple of weeks, that is still very much in play. Excuse me. Sorry. For those of you who can't see what I just did, I had to take a lovely, refreshing sip of my sparkling water because it's just that kind of day today. So what else? Any news off the top? Yes. Okay. This is going to basically get us into my creative milestones. So the past 2 weeks, I've spent a lot of time marketing, a lot of time marketing. And that's mainly because one of my 2019 creative goals is to make this the year of the marketer, which is where I dive in head first into all the nitty gritty things with regard to marketing on social media, email marketing, getting more into ads, like paid advertising for my books and my work on Amazon.com, as well as Facebook, etc. So for the first 2 weeks, I really delved headfirst into that endeavor, and it paid off gangbusters. So I'm just going to jump into... Actually, I'll get into that in just a second, because that's such a big chunk of the podcast, and I'm going to save that for a little later. I want to give you guys like the smaller sort of milestones before then. So a lot of the time that I spent actually in the past 2 weeks, at least in the first couple of days of between December 31st and January 14th, actually I took a lot of time to do my Creative Achievements 2018 roundup and also to record and post my 2019 creative goals. So if you sort of want to know how I ended last year and how I'm beginning this year, definitely go and check those out. For graduate school, and most of the weirdness obviously is coming from graduate school, but I'll get into that at the later half of the podcast. But in terms of what I have been able to finish and accomplish, I have officially started my TA positions. And yes, I did say positions because unexpectedly for me, I got assigned 2 TA shifts this semester. So somewhat, I don't want to call it evenly divided between my 50% assignment. But there's a lot of work associated with grading for both of those TA shifts this semester, and I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, but I do know that because I have to work on my master's thesis, that the TA shifts are pretty much going to be, managed when I can manage them. So I'll be doing the work for that, but the main priority right now is my master's thesis, which is due in 8 weeks. But I'll get into that in a second. What I did end up working on for the past 2 weeks was finishing up my master's report. And just to reiterate what I went over what I was assigned for my master's report, I was in charge of sort of theoretically within like our little academic circle, pretending as though I were the dramaturg at the Classic Stage Company in New York City on East 14th Street. Really great company. If you're actually in New York City or just visiting the area, you should definitely go check it out and see some of their productions, some really great productions. And yeah, so they, true to their name, they deal with more classical and canonical works, but they try to modernize those works for the more modern day audience. So it's really great. But I was assigned as a part of my master's report to the task of creating a 2020-2021 season that reflects my aesthetic, my tastes, my interests, but also bridges the gap between myself, the local community, modern day adaptation, and the classical canon with which the Classic Stage Company deals. So I ended up putting together a 6-show season that I believe reflected the values of the company, but also had my little flair, my little twist on it. And that was supposed to be around 15 pages. It ended up being nearly 30 pages because I did a very thorough delve into the topic. I basically did around, I would say, 10 pages of writing up a company, actually, sorry, 7 to 8 pages of writing up a company profile on the Classic Stage Theater, wherein I did a production history analysis from their inception in 1967 all the way until this year, 2019. Then the middle part of the master's report was the pitch for my 6 show season, and I did a production pitch for each of the 6 shows, and I'll tell you what those are in a second. And then I ended my report with had to have been like a 7 page marketing plan as to how I would get the word out about this new season, and how I would collaborate with local community organizations, nonprofits, arts institutions, etc., to help spread the word. So it's a very comprehensive, multifaceted report, and I really put my foot in it. I know I didn't enjoy writing the whole thing. There were parts that I enjoyed and parts that I didn't quite enjoy. But for the most part, it was fine. The part that I enjoyed the most, obviously, was creating a season all in and of itself. And so my season actually was comprised of an adaptation of Mother Courage, an adaptation of Moliere's Tartuffe, an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest, a festival that I call the Dionysia Festival. I did not make the name up. That Dionysia Festival is actually an ancient Greek festival that was held very regularly thousands of years ago, wherein playwrights would come, write dramas, comedies, epic poetry, and compete with each other for glory and infamy and things like that. And so I decided, in order to celebrate the Greeks in a more modern way, that we could have a modern Dionysia festival. And I also proposed a production that basically deals with putting forth classical American voices, but at the same time acknowledging those American playwrights who are lesser known and have been silenced throughout our history, and acknowledging them as classical voices as well. And of course, those voices include female playwrights, playwrights of color, etc. And then there was also a Chekhovian Three Sisters adaptation series that I pitched as well. And I would love to give you guys a sort of rundown, a more specific rundown of each of these productions that I want to pitch. But as I realized that I was developing each of these productions, these are essentially director's concepts and playwright concepts that I now consider my intellectual property. So I will not be sharing the details of those until I have actually produced the physical format of the intellectual properties that are covered underneath my creative process. So the Shakespearean adaptation of The Tempest is a very special adaptation that I personally would like to do and engage in myself. As well as the adaptation of Moliere's Tartuffe is a very special, close to my heart, very unique sort of adaptation that I also want to keep to myself. And so I just sort of, I'm not trying to be selfish or cryptic. It's just that if I put out these ideas, the playwriting and theater world is actually very, very small. And so I don't think people are going to try to steal things per se, but you just never know. It's not the same kind of industry as screenwriting, wherein everybody can take one idea and come up with something different. You can do that in theater, but these ideas are very specific. So if I pitch this particular idea and somebody sees it and actually does it, I literally can't go and produce this idea on my own. It looks like I'm copying them. So that's why I'm not really sharing it. And again, this is not like an ego thing or what have you. This is just a me trying to be smart and protecting myself thing. This is also me just to kind of get back to my personal relationship to 2019. This is me sort of walking in one of the resolutions I've made for myself, which is to keep more things closer to the chest. I tend to be very open and out there with my ideas and my dreams and my goals, and I will continue to do that. But I sort of realized, sort of in a really harsh way, like no one's stolen my ideas or anything like that, but there were other things that were happening in my life on a more personal level, wherein I realized that sometimes sharing information with people is not the best thing that you can do. I mean, you're being open and honest and being vulnerable, and sometimes people can't really handle that vulnerability, or you can't even handle that vulnerability when they respond to it, and so, there are just certain things that just should be kept quiet to yourself, and I learned that the hard way in like some personal situations that I was going through, and I decided to apply that same lesson to some of the professional things that I'm going through. So I am going to be a little bit more judicious about what I choose to share and when, but it doesn't mean that you guys are going to lose out in terms of seeing particular milestones. So there's certain things that I feel like I've done enough work on and I've owned publicly enough, wherein certain ideas and movements and things actually do belong to me and I can share those with people. But these particular ideas that I've pitched for my dramaturgical curation of this theater's new season, these are becoming intellectual properties that I'm actually genuinely invested in. And when I am no longer invested in them, and I have no longer decided I'm going to actually go forward with these projects, then you guys will hear me talk about them in more depth and more detail on the podcast. But until then, they are shadow development projects that will go on my slate and are going to be kept right here. Okay, so that's what's going on with graduate school. Finished up the master's report, and now I am working very diligently on my master's thesis. And that is where things have gotten really, really fun. I actually just came from a meeting with one of my thesis committee members today, and I basically got permission from both her and my major advisor to go full steam ahead on the two-pronged master's thesis project that I'm working on. And the reason why I bring up this meeting that I went to today is that this particular professor, her class is an optimal class through which I can work on my master's thesis, and I wanted to ask her if it'd be okay to essentially, quote, double dip. I don't really see it as double dipping personally, using this class to produce my master's thesis, but some people would get offended by that. I personally think that if your graduate level class is not pushing you towards a final product, such as your thesis, your comps, or your dissertation, that it's a waste of time. And luckily, people that I'm working with this semester have a similar perspective. But also, the class encompasses enough other material and other assignments such that me working on this master's thesis is not going to be too much of a double dip, so to speak. So that's really exciting. That basically all of my endeavors this semester, except for my TA assignments, are actually helping me to get this master's thesis done, turned in, and just wrapped up very nicely. So I actually, after turning in my master's report on Monday, I did take a break that day. I didn't do any more graduate work except for going to my class, my other class. And then as of yesterday and today, I have delved headfirst, and I'm really loving the process. All of the work that my collaborator and I did over the summer with studying television writing and me putting together all those materials, me writing up all those study notes, me creating all those worksheets and templates. I mean, I already knew that those were good just for me to have and were good for my personal edification. But in terms of seeing those things actually go to work for me, I am definitely already seeing that this semester. My one of my advisors also gave me another really lovely template trick that I can use to beat out my pilot in a really fascinating, fantastical way, and I will share that method with you guys at some point later on the Bohemian Badass. Which I have an update on the Bohemian Badass, but I'll get to that in a second. But all of that work that I put in the summer of 2018 and beyond is definitely paying off, because now I don't have to figure out how to adapt a TV, or rather, I don't have to figure out how to write a TV series or a pilot. All I have to do is sit down and use the templates and the worksheets that I already developed, and also figure out how I'm going to adapt a series of 4 plays to a television format. So I can put my focus on the things that actually matter, like the actual adaptation process and the actual writing and development process, as opposed to having to learn TV writing in a matter of 8 weeks, which is great. So I'm really excited about that. That was something I was a little bit nervous about, having to do, the master's thesis and an extra play project on top of that. But actually, after the master's thesis is handed in the first or second week of March, and after spring break is over, I'll be starting for that particular class in which I'm double dipping. I'll actually be writing a play for the second half of the semester, which is really nice. I'll have time to actually devote to that full time. As you guys know, I have all these other projects on my plate, these books and novellas I have to write, but I'll have even more time to focus on those after my master's thesis is turned in. So that's really exciting. Nothing but good news on that front. Again, the only bad news there was the fact that my TA-ship responsibilities for the next 8 weeks are like a 35-hour-a-week responsibility. But we'll see how we can sort of make it work. I have my ways. Okay, so let's move forward. What is going on here? Oh, okay. Sorry, y'all. That was graduate school for Creative Uni. There have been more things I've been doing for Creative Uni preparation than actually sitting in classes for these first 2 weeks of January, which I don't feel so badly about, because I was focused on, again, my master's report, and deep focus is not a bad thing. Now that that's done, I can do deep focus on another project and move on, which is great. But I signed up for another one of Tiffany the Budgetnista's Live Richer challenges. It's really amazing. It's called the Home Buying Edition. I haven't started it yet, but I am collating and archiving it in my little folder so I can do it at a later time. I did a lot of organization and collating of some full-length scripts, a lot of book marketing materials, especially from this really amazing group called 20 Books to 50K, which I highly suggest if you are an indie author looking to break into indie publishing and you're all about DIY, publish yourself, etc. Definitely join that group. It is amazing, and they have a lot of marketing resources that I really have benefited a lot from and will continue to benefit from. I also started my marketing studies for developing a larger Patreon platform. And I haven't delved as deeply into Patreon marketing as I could. Not because I don't want to, but because, again, time limitations for the past 2 weeks. But also, Patreon, in my opinion, is like the ultimate form of the superfan support site, right? That is where your super fans will go to support you and your endeavors. I have been blessed with 2 Patreon supporters, which I really love, and I really appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. To people out there, 2 supporters might not be that big of a deal, but I see a lot of online content creators who have, millions of followers on YouTube or whatever, who only have about 1,500 supporters. And that's not me shading them at all. I'm just saying that is how hard it is to get Patreon supporters. When you have YouTubers out there who have millions of followers, but only about 1,500 of those followers support them on Patreon, that those are the super fans, and that it's hard to get super fans and super supporters. So The two who are supporting me right now, I love you, I adore you, and I just bow down to you. Thank you so much. You guys are the ultimate MVPs. But because it's a super fan platform, I really want to make sure that it is up to par the way that it needs to be, that it's catering to the super fans in which it needs to be. And that's just going to take time, effort, consistency, and dedication. And I really want to put the effort that is required into that endeavor. So it's a slow moving process, but it is a process that is moving. I also finished Mira Nair's independent filmmaking masterclass. Again, I can't say enough great things about it. It's amazing. I loved it. I love her. I want to see all her movies, and her director spirit is really just like my spirit, where I want to be, in both her level of expertise, but also in her compassion, her wisdom, and her way with working with actors. I also started Mark Dawson's Ad for Authors course, which is incredible, and it's going to really, boost me and my books and just my art in a way that I haven't been able to see before. A big part of this whole year of the marketer push is really becoming a new author and artist for the next 5 years of my career. I published my first novel, Ghosts of Koa, which then got broken down into The Given and The Taken. I published all of that in mid-December 2013. As of December of 2018, 5 years later, I had diversified my properties, my current novels, into, those two novels, The Given, The Taken, 2 print versions, 2 audiobook versions. And I also recently released the novella, The Camille, and I had just finished the 3rd novel in the Books of Ezekiel series. So essentially I had like 4 books under my belt, except only 3 had been published across multiple mediums. And I had also made some progress with my subscriber base, which had started off at 0 at first. And then over the years of my learning more about email marketing and giveaways and free opt-ins and things like that, I had grown my list to over 20,000. Then I cut my list back down to, about 10,000. And actually, I cut it back down to about 11,000 now. And I've let people sort of jump ship as they want or engage as they want, etc. And I made a lot of progress in a lot of ways, and I learned a lot, definitely. Definitely learned a lot. But now I feel as though it's really time for me to step my game up. It's time for me to step up my production. My novel production, like how many books I release per year. It's time for me to step up my marketing and, attract different kinds of readers. I had learned a lot about attracting the freebie hunters for the past 5 years. Not hating on you guys. Love you guys. You guys make a really wonderful, powerful ARC team, and that's great. But now I really want to tap into the markets who are really willing to put money down to invest in my books, support the books, and support my career as an artist. And so, I've just been really reflecting on my past 5 years in all aspects of publishing and in writing and in art production. And now I'm ready to really step up my game in all levels. And then once I'm able to step up in indie publishing, I can bring all of those lessons and that marketing acumen to the different areas of my artistic life, like screenwriting, TV writing, and especially filmmaking. So that's basically why I am diving headfirst into advertising, marketing, and things like that this year. Because I just want the next 5 years to be all about producing, marketing, producing. Because people actually like my work. And they think it's great. They just need to know that it's there and that it exists, right? So, and not just the people who want to get free books, but the people who actually want to buy books. They need to know that my work exists. So that's going to be a huge focus from this year all the way up until pretty much I leave this earth. Writing. Not much actual word count was acquired, or not acquired, but accomplished in the past couple of weeks, which I'm actually, obviously not happy about, but I'm not kicking myself over it because I know that I was filling that time with all these other things that were going on. But I did actually start working on the next novel in the Books of Ezekiel series, currently entitled Fraternity. It could change, but I'm trying to keep it, at that title. I also wrote and posted, finally, in the past week, my first post of 2019 at the Bohemian Badass. And it's about cultivating and loving on and healing your inner child as an artist. And so it's the first post of a series of posts on cultivating your inner child, and I definitely will be continuing that series this week. My aim is to get at least one blog post up on the Bohemian Badass per week at minimum. I do want to try to post on there more often, and definitely do my first podcast, which I'm going to try to do today, and just make my posts and my presence more consistent on the Bohemian Badass and actually grow that as a business. You guys know that I've been working on the Bohemian Badass content and courses and blog posts and, business plans and just building up the business side behind the scenes. But there's a point at which you can build behind the scenes, but then you have to just jump into it. So no matter how ugly it looks, no matter how, sparse the posts look or whatever, I'm going to just write and post and do what I can every day until I'm able to build up, my fan base and everything like that. And I'll build up a readership of people who actually want to hear what I have to say about making art and writing, because I'm not Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, but I actually know quite a bit in various industries in terms of craft, and to a certain extent in indie publishing, marketing, and selling. But, in terms of the craft of dramaturgy, I'm literally getting a degree in that. The craft of novel writing, I've just finished my 4th novel, and I've been writing my entire life and studying writing, more importantly, most of my life. The craft of screenwriting and TV writing, I practice it all the time. So again, this is not me saying I'm the expert, but I do want to begin to share my knowledge with the world. And you guys can either sign on to it and be like, oh, this sounds interesting and, compelling, or, find somebody else with whom you have a stronger craft connection, which is totally fine. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to wait on that. I told you I was going to wait on the, marketing thing, the marketing section. So I'm going to put a pin in that. I did a lot of plotting for the past couple of weeks. And as a matter of fact, I'm so excited about this. I hit a major milestone with the co-written, currently untitled novel that I'm working on for our USA Today best-selling box set that we are going to be launching this coming July. And the milestone that I hit with that co-written novel is that I finished plotting out my half of the story, my character story, and I finished gridding out my character story. And when I say gridding, my co-writing partner and I have gotten into using Sean Coyne's story grid. She made a really wonderful Excel sheet that really helps to, chunk the story down into actual scenes, and uses trigger points and turning points and polarity shifts that he mentions in his novel on that spreadsheet, so that the book is lean, mean, and a fighting machine. And so I've been using that new plotting tool to really help me whiz through a really great plot. And it helps out a lot. I still notice that for me personally, world building and knowing backstories and character motivations are still required for me to write a really good book, or a complete book, as I would say. But in terms of having a book plotted out more quickly, this is the fastest I've ever been able to finish a book plot, and I am really excited. So I'm waiting for my co-writer to get back from her vacation. Hi, if you're watching this. Hope you're enjoying your vacation. But I'm waiting for her to come back and finish plotting out her character side of the story, finish gridding out her character side of the story, and then we can just start writing. So I assume that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks to a month, which is perfect because now that I've finished that major milestone in our book creation process, I can focus on my master's thesis, adaptation TV series, as well as the first novella that I will be publishing in 2019, Surrogate. Surrogate, as you guys know, or you might not know, depending on how closely you've been tuning in, but it is, again, another pilot episode in a completely different serialized novella series, or serialized novel series, excuse me. And in the same format as the Camille, the Surrogate series is going to be a 5-season, 10 episode per season serialized novella. So 50 episodes in total. If you put, each season together into one package, it's really just one really long, probably 100,000 word book, maybe 200,000 word book. And it's going to be great. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about how Surrogate is developing. I'm using the same TV writing and TV development tools and worksheets and workbooks that I developed this past summer for the development of Surrogate. It is working out really well. I'm really happy that I've been able to develop a series of tools that I myself can use to keep producing new TV series and serialized novel series concepts. It's working very well for me. And right now, even though I'm working towards the creation of Surrogate, remember that the reason why I'm working on Surrogate right now is because it's going to be one of the 4 contributing stories to the next 2054 installment. As you guys recall from last year, the Camille was supposed to be a single story inside of the 2054 anthology that we released in 2018. And it did serve that purpose, but I don't like letting intellectual property go to waste. I thought the Camille was a great concept. It probably needs some tweaks and some, turns and twists put into it. But I decided throughout that process that it was going to be the pilot episode of an ongoing serialized novel series. And so the Camille is still very much on my radar. I'm actually going to be working on that in 2019 during the month of, let me just look at my extremely long writing schedule for this year. So let's see, TV series. Nope. TV series. So I will resume work on the Camille this May 2019. So I haven't forgotten about that. But in the meantime, we are releasing the second volume of 2054, the anthology, and that anthology will contain a completely different story, a completely different kickoff pilot to another serialized novel series that I call, once again, Surrogate. Really excited about where this series is going. It's just going to be wild, and I'm really excited and really amped about it. So that's all I'll say about that. I worked a lot on plotting and gridding that series out in the past couple of weeks as well. So a lot of really great things, in terms of writing and development. Again, actual word count suffered, but story was still being created. So that was really exciting for me. What else? Okay, so the last little part of this that I wanted to get into was just what precisely I did for marketing this week. And, this is the grand majority of what took up a lot of my time for the past couple of weeks, but I don't want it to be so long in the podcast because sometimes marketing can be like a little dry. But one major thing that I did for marketing is that I officially took down Ghosts of Koa as a book that I am selling, because for a couple of reasons. One, I want to use a different set of artwork, which requires a different kind of contract. And I'll be working with my artist again in the future because he does some amazing work. But I've just decided that I want a different kind of um, arrangement and relationship between my work and the art that it comes with, or what have you. That's one reason. But the other reason is that, as you guys know, I am constantly in the middle of evolving and rebranding the Books of Ezekiel series. And the Ghost of Koa did great as like a really nice package of novels, and helped me to kind of maintain some momentum in terms of people downloading it and reading it and loving it. But because the series has evolved into like a slightly longer series at this point, I have to rebrand how I'm going to create the omni-buy of my series. So the given and the taken, yes, will be offered together in an omnibus later down the line, but it's not going to be called Ghosts of Koa, because we don't really explore the concept of Ghosts of Koa in the given or the taken. They're only really tangentially mentioned and then stepped into at the very end of that series, that leg of the series. And there's just like a lot of other stuff I want to write for this series. And so once all those things are written, I will then go back through and repackage the novels that I have by season arc. And I will name that particular season arc something that actually is relevant to what's happening in that season arc. So that's a big reason why I'm taking Ghosts of Koa down. I'm just rebranding, and I just need to like redo all of that. But that was a major thing, because that removed a lot of, out of the 4 properties I had available for sale, it took one of those 4 properties out. But that's okay. Not a big deal. One major thing that I really want to let you guys know about in terms of marketing is that Amazon has this really amazing feature going on now called X-Ray. Maybe I'm just late to the game because you guys know I don't publish as quickly as everybody else does. But X-Ray allows you to essentially go through your book, pick out terms and names and pronouns and places and things and magic and whatever unique elements you have in your book. You can go through it and sort of add a click-on glossary to these particular things. So I am definitely going to do that. And I think this is a way to help readers better navigate more complex ideas and storylines, which is great for me, because that is one of the critiques that I have, that sometimes people get a little lost in this new world that I'm creating and they don't know who's what or whatever. And instead of me writing an entire paragraph on it, that's expository, you can literally just have a link where you click on or you tap on the word that you don't really understand, and it'll just pop up with like a little prompt box explaining exactly what it is. Although I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but I do believe that I write well enough so that people who are reading can just actually figure out or know off the bat what's going on, who's what, and what's what. But I'm not one of those, and I don't want to sound like a hater, but for YA work, for example, there'll be like an entire paragraph explaining what this new dystopian land is and how it came to be, and just like, in very plain, straightforward English. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not very artful. I don't find it artful. I don't find the beauty and the wordsmithery in that. I don't find the seamlessness of stepping into a world like that. I find it clunky and it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I'm not going to do that in my work. My work is for people who can deduce things on their own from clues that are very clearly placed there, so that did sound more condescending than I meant it to sound, but you guys know what I mean, right? I'm not going to write to like a certain sector of the population. I think that my work is accessible if you like care. And if you don't, then I guess I'm just like not the writer for you. Wait until I write YA and maybe you guys will like it better. But X-ray will definitely help you to navigate some of those issues in terms of, even if you just forgot like what is an Azure versus what is a civilian, you can just click on the word Azure and it'll pop up being like, the upper class society in this world that has the ability to create and make alchemy, like boom, it'll be there. So for those of you who are aspiring indie authors and publishers, I highly, highly recommend that you take advantage of the X-ray feature. It is amazing, and you have full control pretty much of how you define the terms, and also bonus, how you connect the terms to the outside world. If you don't want to define a term on your own, or you find that like a Wikipedia page connects the concepts better, you can always literally connect your work directly to Wikipedia. Now, to me, this is major because if this connection is a bi-directional connection, that means that the searchability of your work will be heightened by Wikipedia's massive presence online. So let's say, for example, that no one else out there except for Colby is writing about Azures in a way that treats Azure as a pronoun as opposed to a color, right? Anyone who hears about Azures, anyone who's just interested even in the color Azure or whatever, can type that into Google, go to Wikipedia, look up the disambiguations of Azures, and potentially find my book. If Amazon has established a bidirectional search engine that allows Wikipedia users to find your work through the X-ray function. If they've done that, then searchability is about to be on fleek. And I'm hoping that that is actually one of the points that of Amazon putting this feature in. And this actually is helpful for not only authors, but for consumers, and I just think it's really great, and I am trying to take advantage of it as soon as possible and find out all the features around it as soon as possible so that I can like fully avail myself of it and then also write about it and tell other authors to do it. So that was one major marketing goldmine find that I stumbled across in these past 2 weeks. I also worked on my two of my secret blogs and websites this past couple of weeks. That was really great because, again, marketing. Social media for all of my brands and businesses are getting a major rehaul. And also, I just realized I need to make time to really become intimately acquainted with each kind of social media outlet. I can go through a social media aggregator and post one post to all these social media outlets and do that all that I want. But a lot of these social media outlets are now preventing the aggregators from doing this. So you're going to have to go and update each outlet with, let's say I write a post at the Bohemian Badass about your artistic inner child, right? Which I did. I used to be able to go to hootsuite.com, put the link to the post, write a little mini blurb, about 140 characters, attach an image or a series of images, and then post automatically to Facebook, to Google+, to Twitter, and sometimes to Instagram through this weird sort of magic maneuvering all at once. Now, all of the social media outlets have completely changed the ways in which you can create content and the kinds of content you can post. And, I have each of my businesses and brands has its own Twitter channel. But if there's one particular blog post or piece of content that I find relevant for 3 out of 5 brands, I'm going to try to post to all of those brands that are relevant at the same time. A lot of social media outlets have stopped us from doing that because I guess they want a diversity of content or something online. I don't know. But I'm finding that I can't necessarily rely on social media aggregators to take care of my social media outreach. I'm going to have to basically, take that hour, to really maximize the reach of each of my posts on each of the social media outlets. So I've just been learning more of the ninja ways of the different social media sites like YouTube, Google Plus, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and every single one has its own Tumblr. I wasn't even really all that into Tumblr, but I think I can really make it work for me. And each one of these social media outlets has its own way of doing its thing. And so I just need to just learn what that is, learn how to best acclimate those methods to what it is I'm trying to do for my businesses, and just follow it accordingly. I can do Instagram stories over here and then Twitter stories over there, and then do like a live YouTube casting of something else over there. And I just need to know what tools are available to me for each platform. And using a social media aggregator has actually prevented me from learning those tools. It's actually just been a shortcut to like reaching an audience. But I really want to figure out how to personalize the social media experience per the social media outlet as was intended. So again, that's another process that's sort of slow going, and it's going to be a long trip, but I'm here for it. It's okay. So the two other major things I've been doing for marketing obviously have been preparing for the upcoming launch of my book, The Lock-In, but also preparing for the upcoming launch of the USA Today best-selling box set that we are trying to push for July 2019, which I can't reveal the name of the box set just yet, which is why I keep calling it the USA Today best-selling box set, which is a lot longer and more cumbersome to say than the actual title. But we've been instructed to keep a tight lid on the title, on everything basically, until we start going out for pre-orders and until we start recruiting for ARC teams. And because I am the ARC team head of this particular box set endeavor, you guys will be hearing from me on my podcast about joining up with the ARC team and, really having the opportunity to read and review about 26 different novels in the paranormal romance and urban fantasy genres. So that's exciting. Things are happening there. The time that I've taken to prepare for both of these launches has been exponential, but it will be well worth it. So usually, and I'm just going to put these both under the same umbrella, what I do in terms of preparing for a launch includes preparing a mailing list on my email marketing service, preparing a landing page for ARC reviewers to sign up to that list, preparing the pre-order files and the actual pre-orders, writing blurbs, preparing graphics. I had to do the social media graphics for the lock-in. I did not do the graphics for our USA Today bestsellers list box set. That's a whole different team working on that. It also means, creating a marketing schedule, updating the marketing schedule. It means a lot of, networking and talking to your collaborators, whether those be your ARC readers or your co-collaborators for this box set that I'm working with. It also means setting up an autoresponder email sequence, because a launch should be, in my opinion, very precise, where you don't only recruit advanced review readers onto your list, but you have to warm them up and get them excited. So a part of my own creation of like a good launch is warming up my ARC list for the lock-in, which is for my individual novel, but also preparing an entire ARC list launch plan and a launch party for the ARC team for this best-selling box set. So I haven't announced yet to the group what my plans are for the ARC team, but I will be doing that this week to let them know, because right now it kind of looks like I'm not doing anything, but I am. There's a lot of stuff getting done behind the scenes. I just don't spend all of my time on Facebook announcing it. But, I have been doing quite a bit for this box set, setting up the landing page, getting everything ready, setting up an autoresponder sequence, being fully in charge of managing this entire team, setting up, just having contest ideas and giving out prizes. And, I'm going to be managing all of that. And so, I have to just keep doing that. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks with my marketing, with everything really, honestly. And it's been taking up a lot of time. Of course, being a mama, it takes up a lot of time and energy, and also engaging in quite a bit of self-care. And I actually wanted to come back and give the second installment of this podcast, which was originally entitled Follow Your Compass. And I had recorded an entire 30-minute inspirational sort of clip for you guys based on recent events that have been happening in my life that have taught me how to follow my compass. But my technical equipment pretty much failed me. So what I'm going to do is actually even more exciting. I am going to end this podcast with just my creative milestones that I've achieved over the past 2 weeks. And tomorrow, I'm not really sure what time, but tomorrow I'm going to do a YouTube live premiere on following your compass from my actual YouTube channel, specifically the channel, the playlist on the channel that's called The Epic Fantastical Journey of a Black Female Sci-Fi Writer. So while I'm annoyed that I did all that talking and inspirational talk just to have none of it recorded, I am making lemonade from my lemons, and I'm going to basically do my next podcast number 93, on the things that I learned from these past, not just 2 weeks, but this past month of just everything in life and all corners of life converging and being crazy, but me coming out of that crazy and learning how to follow my compass. So with that, I will bid you guys a very temporary adieu and farewell, and just tell you guys to keep it indie, stay badass, keep creating, and I will talk to you guys not next week, but tomorrow with the time forthcoming. Okay. Bye.